Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 97 Republic YouTube channel, where I react to UFC news, live events, basically just anything related to the UFC. So I kindly ask that if you enjoy the video, a friendly reminder to click the like button. If you want to become a part of this channel, feel free to click the subscribe button. And if you don't want to miss out on anything, you want to stay up to date, feel free to click the notification bell. All of this really contributes to the growth of this channel. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this one. Ladies and gentlemen, a new episode that is part of a new series where prior to every Fight Night event, prior to every pay-per-view event, I look at all of the fights on the main card and basically just have a discussion on who has more to lose. Like, pretty self-explanatory, but just a reminder to drop a like, drop a comment if you enjoy this video. Therefore, I know that you enjoy it and you would like to see these type of videos in the future. So starting off, UFC Fight Night, Cory Sandhagen versus Deiveson Figueiredo. The return of Lil Heathen, Jeremy Stephens versus Mason Jones. Now, straight off the bat, it has to be Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy has more to lose because if we look at Mason Jones, he's 30 years old. Within the UFC, he's 1-2. His record is 1 win, 2 losses, but that's not really a fair reflection of his performances within the UFC thus far, because in his debut got a fight of the night bonus, which the UFC loves. Then in his second fight ended in a no contest due to the fact that Alan Patrick wasn't able to continue because of an eye poke. Mason would have won that fight. Mason would have definitely gone to win that fight. Was outstriking Alan Patrick, had 2 takedowns, and then in Mason's third fight ended up beating David Onama. The same David Onama who recently beat Giga Jakatse. Mason Jones has a win over him. And then in Mason's last fight within the UFC, he lost to Ludovic Klein. But, I mean, he should be 2-2 within the UFC. And let's say he gets cut. Let's say he loses this fight, he gets cut. He's still 30 years old, right? So he can go to a different organization, be really competitive there, maybe champion, get re-signed to the UFC. It has happened a lot. However, Jeremy Stephens is 38 years old. You would imagine that this would be his last stint within the UFC. And looking at Jeremy's record, if we take a look at Jeremy's last 5 fights within the UFC, so lost all of them. Lost to Jose Aldo, lost to Zabit Magomedsharipov, lost to Yair Rodriguez, lost to Calvin Kattar, and then lost to Matthias Gamrot. Now, sure, all of those names are, Donnies, tough opponents within the UFC. After that, he went to the PFL, and then he was 1-2 inside of the PFL, so not a great record either. And then after that, he went to pure boxing, fought Jose Aldo, ended in a draw, then fought Chris Avila on the Jake Paul Nate Diaz card, ended up losing. But then Jeremy went to bare knuckle. And he has flourished due to the fact that when Jeremy Stephens told Conor McGregor back then that he's the hardest hitting 145er, when he knocks people out they don't move, Jeremy wasn't lying. The only problem is it wasn't about what he said, it was about who he said it to. Because back then Conor McGregor could have told the Pope that he runs the Vatican, and the Pope would have been, yeah, he has a point, I'ma head out. So Jeremy Stephens, with regards to his career, feels like boxing, just pure boxing, has benefited his style way more than mixed martial arts. And even though he's had impressive performances in the UFC and has had good wins over the likes of Josh Emmett, Renan Barao, he just hasn't been flourishing as much as he did in BKFC and bare knuckle. So it has to be Jeremy Stephens. The answer has to be Jeremy Stephens. Lost it within the UFC. I don't think he will get cut if he ends up losing this fight. However, the pressure would pile on. And yeah. But then in the next fight, we have Cameron Smotherman versus Sergey Sidey. Now, any answer would be the right answer. Just due to the fact that I don't think neither one of these two men have a lot to lose. Cameron Smotherman is 1-0 inside of the UFC, and Sirhay is 1-1 within the UFC. Now, Cameron ended up losing on Dana White's Contender Series, received the UFC contract, ended up winning in his debut. Sirhay ended up winning on Dana White's Contender Series, fought Ramon Tavares, and ended up beating Ramon Tavares first round knockout. Now, it was early. It was an early stoppage. Dana White afterwards, sitting octagon side, looked perplexed. Like, definitely, the sight that you imagine Dana and his facial expression, thinking the referee went in too early. And then, the UFC rewarded Sirhay with a contract. And do you know who he fought in his very first fight inside the UFC? Ramon Tavares, the exact same guy he fought on Dana White's Contender Series rematch. Ramon beats him via split decision. That has to be horrible. Imagine beating Ramon Tavares on Dana White's Contender Series, receiving a contract, then you have to face him again in your debut, and he beats you. Split decision. Horrible. But then, anyway, in Sirhay's next fight, he ended up winning, so he's 1-1. So neither man really has a lot to lose. But I'd say it's probably Cameron Smotherman due to the fact that he's undefeated within the UFC. One fight, one win. Has an unblemished UFC record. So, has to be Smotherman. Then, next fight, Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. Now, records, Montel Jackson's 14-2. And Daniel Marcos is 17-0. With regards to the UFC, I think Montel he's had 10 fights within the UFC, and Daniel Marcos has had 5. Now, even though Daniel Marcos is undefeated, I think Montel Jackson has more to lose. Due to the fact that Montel ended up losing his very first fight within the UFC when he fought Ricky Simone. But then, in his next 9 fights within the UFC, won 8 of them, only losing to Brett Johns. And in Montel's last, 5 performances, has had good wins over JP Bays, over Damon Blackshear, and in his last 2 fights has 2 knockouts. So impressive performances. It's really tough for bantamweights, flyweights to knock their opponents out just due to the fact that there is a massive lack of power. So what you lack in power, you have to make up for in timing, accuracy, speed. That's why Sean O'Malley's been able to knock people out. Just goes to show you rather that he is a very sophisticated striker. And with regards to Daniel Marcos, even though he's undefeated, I don't feel like he has a lot to lose. This undefeated thing really started to inflate with Khabib. Because Khabib was undefeated within the UFC, has had like 31 or 30 professional fights, and everybody thought that this is the pinnacle, right? You have to be undefeated, you have to dominate every round. But prior to that, it was never like that. All of the greatest, everyone that is in the GOAT conversation, apart from John Jones, lost the fight. And I mean, that's putting it, politely for John Jones, because he lost against Dominic Reyes, but not officially. But I mean, Demetrius Johnson lost multiple times. George St. Pierre lost multiple times. Anderson Silva lost multiple times. So this whole undefeated thing really inflated with Khabib. I don't think if you lose your O, it's that dire. We've seen a lot of guys this year lose their 0. It's not that bad. It has to be Montel Jackson rather than Daniel Marcos, just due to the fact that Montel Jackson is also ranked. I think he's ranked number 13 within the bantamweight division. Daniel Marcos isn't. It's not that bad. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. Once again, any answer would be the right answer. Due to the fact that you could say it's Santiago Ponzinibbio due to he with regards to his legacy within the UFC, just feels like Santiago has a better legacy within the UFC. And I mean, Santiago has had impressive wins. For instance, let me just quickly go into Santiago Ponzinibbio's record within the UFC. This might take long. Here we go. So Santiago Ponzinibbio has ended up beating Mike Perry, Neil Magny, Gunnar Nelson, Sean Strickland. So, some tough names that are on that list. And if we look at Daniel Rodriguez, his record within the UFC, Alright, so Daniel Rodriguez has had an ungodly amount of fights within the UFC. Um, how much was that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So D-Rod has had 13 fights within the UFC, and he has won 9 of them. But he's lost to Ian Gary, which is obviously not a bad loss. Lost to Calvin Gastelum, lost to Neil Magny. Prior to his win over Alex Morono, D-Rod was on a 3-fight losing streak. So, yeah. I mean, he has wins over the people that you would expect him to get wins over. Did have a win against Mike Perry, but that was, that wasn't this BKFC Mike Perry. That was Mike literally at the end of his UFC career, where I think Herb Dean would have beaten Mike Perry back then. But I mean, he's lost to Nicholas Dalby. Um, yeah, I just feel like Santiago has a better legacy within the UFC. I think he has more to lose. Both men are old. We're talking about 39 years old. D Rod is 39, and Santiago is 39. So pick your poison. Either one of them. I'm gonna go Santiago Ponzinibbio. I just think he's always been a cut above average, but not quite good enough. Like he's always been either ranked, 15 to number 10, or unranked. But he's never been above that. Now he might have been ranked above that. I'm just talking in general. Where D Rod has never really been a part of the ranked conversation. So it just feels like Santiago overall has been better within the UFC, and I think he has more to lose. And I mean, in Santiago's last fight, he got an impressive victory over Carlson Harris. He got beat up in that fight. Was very lucky that the fight didn't get stopped, even though Santiago deserved to win. Was lucky that the fight didn't get stopped. Looked bad against Muslim Solikov. Got pieced up and knocked out by Kevin Holland prior to that. So I just think for his legacy, Santiago has more to lose in this fight. Then co-main event, Renier the Ritter versus Bo Nickal. Now there is only one answer. It's Bo Nickal. It has to be Bo Nickal, due to the fact that there's so much hype surrounding Bo Nickal, how good he was in college, the I'd say the complete wrestler, with regards to his credentials in college, coming to the UFC, he's undefeated within the UFC. Now I spoke about how inflated that is, but I mean, Bo's been talking a lot of smack, saying that their wrestling just translates better within the UFC than Dagestan wrestling. If he has to fight Hamzat, he would take him down and he would maul him. So Bo has done a lot of this to himself. He has unnecessarily put himself under more pressure than it had to be. Right? He could have came into the UFC. That was odd. Could have been humble. Basically, just stay silent. Put in your displays and performances. Get your victories. Stay humble. Say yeah, we'll see. But he's gone, the cocky route, and it's like a subtle cockiness, which is odd. If you want to be cocky, just do it Conor McGregor style. Now it's like subtle where he's cocky, but he doesn't say too much, and I don't know. Anyway, I don't dislike Bo Nickal. I just think he has way more to lose. Renier the Ritter came into the UFC, ended up beating Mearshot, ended up beating Kevin Holland. The Kevin Holland one was an impressive performance. I think this is going to be a good fight. I really think this is going to be a good fight. But Renier the Ritter, with regards to his legacy within mixed martial arts in general, I mean, he was a champion in a different organization. He fought, started in EFC, then I think he went to, I think it's one. Yeah, I think it's one. Or, yeah, it's one. Then he went to one championship. He was a champion there. So I mean, he already has a legacy within the mixed martial arts world, where Bo has to establish his legacy. He was a wrestler, who transformed into a mixed martial artist right now. So I think Bo has more to lose. Also, the younger guy. He's gonna be a massive favorite as well, which just makes it worse. Makes it way worse. So yeah, Bo Nickal, more to lose. Has to be Bo. Then main event, Cory Sandhagen, Deiveson Figueiredo. I just quickly want to draw up both of their records, but I think it's Cory. I think honestly it has to be Cory Sandhagen. And I'll tell you now. I'll tell you why right now. So I just want to quickly go Cory Sandhagen and Deiveson Figueiredo. All right, so Cory, the reason I say Cory is I think Cory is a genuine contender within the bantamweight division. I think he is really good. And he has fought basically everyone that you could possibly fight within the bantamweight division, apart from Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili. But I think Cory has had a somewhat a run of bad luck where certain performances just didn't go his way, and I feel like he could have easily won those fights. In his fight against Umar, I think Cory was better than he displayed against Umar, even though he didn't look bad. In his fight against TJ Dillashaw, where he lost, I feel like he could have won that fight as well. And I mean, Cory has been really good within the bantamweight division. Has wins over the likes of Rob Font, Chito Vera, Song Yadong. I mean, the list goes on. Frankie Edgar, Marlon Moraes, Rafael Asensio. So yeah, I think with regards to his legacy and his aspirations within the bantamweight division, I think his ceiling is higher than Deiveson Figueiredo. Where Deiveson has already established himself, he'll already be, potentially be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think it's that big, but I mean, he was champion at flyweight, and he wasn't just champion once at flyweight. I think he defended his belt a couple of times. Where he defended his belt once, what he ended up beating Joseph Benavidez to be the flyweight champion, then defends his flyweight belt against Alex Perez, loses to Brandon Moreno. Well, it was first a draw, so he retained the belt, lost to Brandon Moreno, but then came back, ended up beating Brandon Moreno, lost to him again, came to bantamweight, knocked out Cody Garbrandt, sucked. Won against Marlon Vera, and then lost to Peter Yan. So, I think he's already established his legacy within the UFC, Deiveson Figueiredo. And even though I think he's dangerous and I love watching him fight, just the guy has power. Whether he is flyweight, whether he is bantamweight, he just looks like a indomitable figure. But I think Cory has more to lose. I think Cory is overall. If we look at the overall skill set, I think Cory is better. I think Cory has aspirations to be champion still within the bantamweight division, and Cory is still young. I mean, Cory is 33 years old, so it's not like he is past it. With Deiveson Figueiredo, I think I just saw he is 38, turning 38 this year. So, if Deiveson loses, then he loses. I don't think he will lose in a bad way, but if he loses, he'll just basically still be within the bantamweight division until he retires, without really having to risk anything, because he's already achieved what he set out to achieve within his UFC career. Where if Cory loses, then I don't think a lot of people would be talking about Cory Sandhagen being a potential contender within the bantamweight division. So yeah, and that's basically this video and its conclusion. Let me know in the comment section. Did you enjoy it? Do you agree with my argument on every fight? If you don't, please let me know in the comment section. I'll really appreciate it. Leave a like. Have a beautiful day, and then I'll catch you in the next one.